These patriots have brought freedom to the Sunken Temple, but we're mostly concerned with the warriors. I want to see how much damage are these guys doing on the second boss. There's a whole bunch of people we could look at, but let's look at the ones that people care about the most. They got high numbers, and that makes them better people. I wonder, what are they doing to defeat this ooze and do a lot of DPS? We're going to be inspecting what their raid teams look like. I want to know how much DPS are their comrades doing? Is that maybe part of the way that they're able to parse so high? Or potentially, it could have something to do with the equipment they have on. I do notice that these guys seem to have an epic sword that might be helping them out, but not all of them. Or maybe they have a unique way that they are performing their rotations, or even some luck with their slams. But unless we see how hard they're hitting with each move, we wouldn't really know anyways just by seeing the buttons they press. Maybe there's some other interesting ways they can get extra damage. Potentially there's opportunities to cleave on this fight. Or they could just be really good at hitting the buttons really fast. Let's check out how these guys manage. First, let's make sure that there's a way we can blame other people. We'll check out their raid teams and see what their kill times look like and how well their teammates play, because that way you can have more CD uptime. Interesting. Looks like there's a decent amount of variation with the kill time, so maybe we actually can't blame our teammates that much. But we're not sure of that yet. Let's see. Looks like these guys have pretty similar damage breakdowns. The warriors are sticking out a bit, except for that one. But in general, the warrior's on top, and you see this smooth little curve where everybody else is doing pretty similar DPS for the most part. And when we overlay them all on top of each other, we can really clearly see that there's this pattern where the guy on the top sticks out a bit. So let's check out what their gear is. You may have noticed that a lot of them have that sword that will be very good for a lot of activities involving killing monsters and players, but not all of them. You can see that the one guy who's not going a two-handed spec is using one-handers, and they're things that you can get before entering the raid, so that's kind of neat. And for better or worse, a lot of the items that are good here are from outside of the raid, so you can probably perform pretty good really quickly, as long as you're hitting the abilities correctly, that is. As you can see, all these guys are using Mortal Strike, and they're all using Overpower and some slams, and they're getting off a couple AoE abilities here and there too, using Whirlwinds and Cleaves. We'll go into that a little bit more later. As for what runes they have on exactly, you can go with kinda whatever, but on a fight like this where you're not consistently able to auto attack over and over again, you're probably going to do better having the precise timing rune than using something like Blood Surge. But you're probably wondering what the damage is looking like, so we'll take a peek at that in just a second. Unsurprisingly, we can see that Deep Wounds and Melee are the top contenders for our damage, but also you get a lot of damage from Overpowers and Slams, and of course Executes, which will be fantastic on a fight like this where you're able to take damage on purpose, or on accident if you don't want to pretend it's on purpose. During this fight, you're also going to have some opportunities to do some cleave damage here or there. We'll show you a little bit more about how that works later on, but just know that there are multiple things you can hit, but not all of these warriors did hit multiple things. Some of them just did single target damage to the boss the entire time, but you can help out your teammates with the ads without griefing yourself. And remember, you can be Fury like this guy and do excellent damage on this fight. You don't need a slow weapon, although a slow weapon makes it a little bit easier to have good uptime since you have to run away from the boss sometimes. And as for the rotations that they're doing, you can see that most of these guys are using Slam on a pretty regular interval, same with their other CD'd moves that have very high damage per rage. Of course, the Overpowers, they're kind of regular because of the rend effects. However, you could also just get some activations from it. The big thing here is that you want to make sure that you're using your moves with the most damage per rage first if you're having literally any rage problems at all, and you want to keep an idea on what your swing timer is looking like, because you're going to have to back up a bit during this fight, and so you can actually squeeze a lot more uptime by being strategic about when you do and when you don't take damage. And what I mean by that is sometimes you're going to probably get forced to eat the goo for just a second, but it's not something you can just camp in. It does a bunch of damage. It's not really possible. And if you get too close to the boss, he'll like put you on his back, and then that'll really hammer your DPS. So you can't be too greedy on this fight. You gotta, in general, stay out of all the effects and be hitting things as much as possible. But You don't really need to be playing absolutely perfect. I bet a lot of these guys are not used to doing the stuff with Rend. And hell, look at this Fury Warrior. That's got to be super obnoxious to stay on top of the boss and make sure you're hitting with both weapons all the time. Because it's going to be a little bit difficult since you're getting chased by this guy, the ooze monster, the entire fight. And he wants to put you on his back, and that's not a good thing for you. However, he's also very greedy and will take literally anything you throw at him, and so that's his weakness. Let me explain that in just a moment. You may have noticed that the trolls are a very disorganized people, and that there seems to be bullshit literally all over the place in these hallways. And well, our boy the ooze monster, he's very interested in taking everything you can throw at him. And during the fight, you'll be able to attack these candles, tablets, and whatever else you encounter, and then when he hits them, it will actually slow the boss down. But this isn't as significant for you as it is the rest of the team because you can hit stuff while moving. You might have very short arms and be disabled. However, although you don't have great range, you can make up for it with your mobility as a melee DPS player. While the rest of the team is a little bit bored beating their snake and trying to stay away from the boss, you'll have the opportunity to hit the boss while moving and also cleave onto the furniture that the trolls have left literally all over the place. The pieces of furniture have about 2,000 health each. So it's not like it's going to be a huge percentage of your damage, but if you're being a little bit clever, you will be able to get some extra hits off by using things like Cleave and Whirlwind, and it can enhance your DPS on this fight. If you've ever been interested in speedrunning, I'm sure that you're familiar with how positioning your character is one of the primary ways that you can play better than other people and challenge yourself to improve over time. I think this boss's design is actually fantastic, even though it's a little bit of a loot pinata and it's going to be considered very, very easy by most people. And I bet that we're going to see the kill times on this boss get much, much shorter because you have to imagine that people right now are often doing less damage than a warrior on these earlier fights. And that means what if you just took a whole bunch of warriors, everybody had a ton of DPS, and you all had super high uptime on your abilities? I bet that's going to be a thing in a bit. So you may want to have a lot of other warriors in your group, sadly, if you really want to blast on here. Or maybe something like an enhancement shaman, as we've been seeing that they're kind of taking off too right now. Another trick that you might want to keep in mind is you can auto attack through walls, so if the slime's getting really close to you and you're trying to hug a wall so that way you don't spawn any ooze in the middle of the hallway, you can still hit the boss even if it looks like there's a little corner between you guys. You won't be able to cast your moves, but you will be able to auto attack. These next few weeks are going to be a great opportunity to get an amazing parse on this boss because people aren't used to using Rend on the two-handed specs, and they're also not used to moving around and needing to pay attention to something like a swing timer. Normally, I don't think a swing timer really offers a lot of value in Classic unless you're melee weaving as a hunter, but on a fight like this with constant movement where sometimes you're forced to get out of melee range, it can really give you a big leg up. You should go check out Alondo's stream and you can see exactly what I mean. I think he's probably the best player in the world. I think it's kind of inarguable, honestly. And he even thinks that he didn't play his best on there and his uptime wasn't perfect, but he got a fantastic parse. And so you can probably prepare for this fight and do really good. If you like goofy videos like this and also really technical warrior content, check out some more stuff of mine. I got it somewhere. I don't know. I'm going to probably spin this picture around so that way I'm pointing at it. See